The line between a steal and a scam can sometimes be as thin as flipping the item over to read the back label. You keep buying things out of habit without realizing that the formula has been changed, the weight has been cut down, and the price has been quietly jacked up. Here are 12 items I recommend you look twice at before putting them in your cart next time. 1. Great Value Original Syrup. This bottle of Great Value syrup is placed right in the breakfast aisle, slapped with the word original and a soft price tag. So, a lot of families quickly toss it into their carts, firmly believing they are buying maple flavor for their weekend breakfast. But just flip it over to the back and read the first few ingredients, and you will understand why I chose it to open today's list. Standing at the top of the chart is corn syrup, followed by high fructose corn syrup, then water and caramel color. There isn't a single drop of real maple sap inside. And even the name doesn't dare to include the word maple. To put it simply, you are paying for dyed, concentrated sugar water made to look the part, not maple syrup. A single tablespoon of this variety can pack over a dozen grams of sugar. And it's the kind of sugar that absorbs very rapidly. I have to be honest, a product that evades its name this cleverly is rare. And for older folks who have to keep an eye on their blood sugar, it's even more concerning because it's practically liquid sugar poured straight into your body. What bothers me is that you don't even save that much for that swap. The corn syrup blend just has a one-note, cloying sweetness that sticks to your tongue. Whereas real maple is thinner, pours quickly without being gooey, and has a subtle woody undertone that makes it less heavy. Anyone who has tasted real maple and goes back to the blend will notice it instantly. And if you want to buy real maple, the kind that clearly states pure maple syrup on the label with exactly one ingredient line, maple syrup, you can just stop by Aldi to get it. For the same volume, it's only $5.49. Whereas at Walmart, you pay up to $7.98 for the imitation stuff. It's cheaper, yet it's the real deal. So, I see no reason to bring that other bottle home. 2. Frozen dairy dessert. A massive plastic tub filled to the brim with ice cream at a shockingly low price always carries an irresistible appeal, especially when you have grandkids over or weekend gatherings. But next time you pick it up, pay attention to the tiny print on the back. The FDA regulations mandate must be printed. It is not allowed to be called ice cream, but can only be labeled as frozen dairy dessert. That name says it all. The reason lies in the fact that manufacturers pump air into it to bloat the volume. The industry term for this is overrun. And in this type of dessert, that ratio is pushed to the absolute maximum. To put it bluntly, a portion of what you scoop up is just frozen air bubbles. The tub looks big and full, but when you lift it, it feels light as a feather. You think you're buying a lot, but in reality, you are mostly paying for frozen air. This is also why for the same tub size, this variety is significantly cheaper than real ice cream. Not because they are being generous, but because the inside is less dense. The real price reveals itself when the dessert melts. And this is the part you can test for yourself right at the dinner table. True cream-based ice cream melts into a rich, smooth liquid. Whereas this stuff, when left in the air for a bit, melts down into a thick, sticky white foam that looks a bit like soap suds, and it won't return to its original state even if refrozen. This is because most of the milk fat has been replaced with hydrogenated vegetable oil and corn syrup to keep costs down. It still tastes sweet, sure, but your tongue knows from the very first spoonful that this isn't real ice cream. The fake rich flavor just feels greasy in the back of your throat instead of melting away like dairy cream. But there is another familiar item that nearly every home kitchen has, and it is quietly making your meals worse without you even knowing it. 3. Great Value Pre-Shredded Cheese. A bag of pre-shredded cheese that is already grated into strands to sprinkle on tacos or pizza is certainly convenient, especially on those busy nights when you don't want to touch a grater. However, that convenience comes with something few people expect. To keep the cheese strands from sticking together and clumping up during shipping and storage, manufacturers coat them with a layer of cellulose. To be fair and clear, this cellulose is a form of dietary fiber approved by the FDA, and the amount used is very tiny, so it isn't toxic at all. But its common name makes many people jump because cellulose is often casually referred to as wood pulp. The actual problem, however, lies elsewhere. It is precisely this anti-caking coating that prevents the cheese from melting down smoothly as desired when baked. Instead, it becomes stiff, clumps up, and loses the natural, rich creaminess you expect from a hot pizza. This issue is so easy to fix that there is almost no reason to pass it up. You can buy a block of original cheese and grate it yourself, which only takes about 2 extra minutes. In return, the cheese melts properly, smells aromatic, tastes richer, and doesn't carry any powdery coating layer. Those 2 minutes, to be completely honest, are worth much more than the convenience of a pre-shredded bag. 4. Great value chicken noodle soup. The can label depicts a soup spoon filled to the brim with juicy chicken breast meat, looking instantly warming to the stomach. Exactly the kind of thing we reach for whenever we feel tired or the weather turns cold. But this happens to be one of the items with the most complaints regarding the gap between advertising and reality. When you crack it open, what usually greets you is a wave of watery, thin broth. And the most alarming part lies in the amount of salt. A single can of this size contains anywhere from 1,400 to 1,600 milligrams of sodium, which means you almost hit the entire recommended salt limit for a whole day in just one serving of soup. For older folks who are managing their blood sugar and blood pressure, that is a figure to be truly wary of, not a small matter. As for the chicken meat, which is supposed to be the main character, it accounts for less than 5% of the can's weight. That meager amount of meat mostly consists of chewy scraps or bits mixed with chicken skin, floating in flavored salt water along with a few strands of noodles that have gone completely mushy from soaking for too long. Eating it just to have something in your stomach is fine, but calling it nutritious is a bit of an exaggeration. A pot of homemade chicken soup takes more effort, but you know exactly what you are putting into it. And to me, that is what is truly worth the money. The next item is labeled as a healthy breakfast choice, but it loads more sugar into your body than a whole box of pastries. 5. Flavored instant oatmeal. Oatmeal has long been considered a golden food for cardiovascular health, so those pre-portioned small packets featuring apple, cinnamon, or maple flavors sound both healthy and convenient. Just add boiling water and breakfast is done. But that exact rapid cooking process is where the problem lies. To make the oat grains cook instantly upon contact with boiling water, they are rolled super thin and chopped into bits by industrial machines. That process inadvertently breaks down the natural soluble fiber structure of the grain, which is what originally helps the body absorb it slowly and stay full longer. When that structure is broken, the glycemic index of the meal spikes, the body absorbs it too quickly, and you find yourself feeling hungry again after just a short while. In other words, the bowl of oatmeal you thought would stick to your ribs doesn't keep you full for very long. But what turns me off the most is the sugar. Each small packet weighs only 28 g. Yet, it is stuffed with up to 11 or 12 g of refined sugar, meaning nearly half the packet's weight is pure sugar. You think you are eating a healthy breakfast, but you are actually loading up on a dose of sugar that is no different from a dessert. If you want to eat oatmeal the way it's meant to be, buy whole oats or thick rolled oats and season them yourself with a bit of cinnamon, a touch of honey, or fresh fruit. It will keep you full longer and spare you from carrying that mountain of sugar. 6. Cheap cooking oils in clear plastic bottles. Those canola or soybean oil bottles packaged in large crystal clear plastic jugs always sell very well thanks to their low price tags, and they look completely harmless. However, that exact clear jug is a major weakness because the unsaturated fatty acids and vegetable oils are extremely sensitive to light. When those oil bottles sit exposed under the high-intensity fluorescent lighting that shines day and night on store shelves, that light accelerates the oxidation process significantly. It gradually breaks down the fatty acid chains and generates rancid, pungent odor compounds, sometimes even before you bring the bottle home to your kitchen. That is why some newly opened bottles of oil carry a faint, unpleasant, stale smell. I am not saying you have to avoid cooking oil altogether, but rather choose wisely. Prioritize options packaged in dark-colored bottles or tin containers which block out light, and buy just enough for your current use instead of hoarding a massive jug just because it's cheap, only to let it sit for half a year. Once oil loses its freshness and drops in quality, it smokes easily when stir-frying at high heat and tastes terrible. So that initial low cost turns out to be not worth it. But the most sophisticated trap lies in the freshest section of the store, where you least expect it. And there is one item in the produce section that looks clean and fresh but happens to land on the list of the highest risks for bacterial contamination in the United States. 7. Pre-cut fruit pots. Those clear plastic containers filled with neatly diced watermelon, pineapple, or mango sitting in the refrigerated section look so refreshing and convenient that they are hard to resist, especially for people who dread sitting down to peel a whole fruit. However, this happens to be one of the items that brings in the highest profit margins for supermarkets, and you are the one paying for that premium, calculated by the ounce. The price of pre-cut fruit is typically jacked up 3 to 4 times compared to buying the fruit whole. There is another matter that I feel needs to be addressed bluntly. When you buy a whole fruit, you can pick it up, turn it over, smell it, and gently press it to know if it's still good. With a pre-cut container, you lose all of that ability. You can only see the few pieces sitting on top. In some places, they might utilize fruits that have already started to bruise or partially rot, trimming off the damaged spots and dicing up the rest to throw into containers, making it even harder for you to know what the core inside was truly like. Not to mention the nutrition. The moment fruit is cut open, sensitive vitamins like vitamin C begin to deplete. Sitting under the refrigerated section lights for a while can strip away up to half of its value. So, you are paying several times the price for a portion of fruit that is harder to verify and less nutritious. I understand that convenience is valuable to busy people, but by spending a few extra minutes peeling a fresh pineapple at home, you get significantly more out of it. 8. Bagged salad kits. Tear open the bag, pour in the included dressing packet along with a few dried nuts, and you instantly have a plate of salad. It sounds like an absolute lifesaver for a rushed dinner, but the price of that quick convenience is higher than you think. On a per-ounce basis, bagged salad is 2 to 3 times more expensive than buying a whole head of lettuce to wash and chop yourself. You are paying extra money largely for the bag and the pre-chopping labor. The issue doesn't stop at the price. Those industrial cuts on the vegetable leaves increase the surface area exposed to the air, causing the greens to oxidize and turn black surprisingly fast. After you open the bag, many people use half of it, store the rest, and by the next day, they already find the leaf edges slimy and browning, so they throw it out, turning a supposed bargain into pure waste. This is the part that makes me the most wary. Food safety reports in the U.S. for many consecutive years have ranked pre-cut, packaged, leafy greens among the top risks for E. coli and listeria contamination. The reason is that the industrial washing process pulls vegetables from multiple sources in massive quantities. If just one batch is contaminated with bacteria, the entire lot can cross-contaminate, and most of the bagged veggie recalls on the news in recent years fell exactly into this category. I am not saying every bag is dirty. Most are still safe, and if you absolutely must buy them for convenience, you should at least dump them out to wash them one more time, even if the packaging states they are pre-washed. But when a whole head of lettuce is both cheaper, lasts longer in the fridge, and is washed by your own hands, I see absolutely no reason to choose the riskier path. The next item is something many people think they are buying cheap, but a quarter of that money evaporates right in the pan without them even knowing it. 9. Ground beef chubs. Many people routinely choose those logs of ground beef tightly wrapped in plastic with metal clips on both ends because the price per pound is consistently cheaper than the fresh meat trays at the counter. At first glance, it truly looks like a money saver. But this is exactly where the low price tricks you. That airtight style of packaging prevents oxygen from coming into contact with the meat, keeping it a nice-looking pink color for significantly longer. However, that perfectly uniform pink color is due to the lack of oxygen, not because it's fresh. Even though our eyes keep interpreting it as fresh and delicious, the reality inside is quite different. This type of tubed ground beef is typically gathered from multiple sources of leftover meat scraps, and the ratio of fat and bound water mixed in can run up to 20 or even nearly 30%. You cannot see that through the plastic layer. And the chub doesn't clearly print the lean-to-fat ratio like the trays at the fresh counter do, where you can read the number on the label instantly to know what you are buying. That vagueness is exactly what they count on. Because if you could clearly see how much fat was in there, you would hesitate. And that hidden portion reveals itself plain as day when you put it in the pan. Toss the meat log in and it shrinks drastically, releasing a puddle of fat and water that you have to drain off, with the block of meat sometimes shrinking down to half its size. The stuff you pour down the drain is exactly the money you thought you were saving at the beginning, now literally evaporating. Therefore, for dishes that require lean meat, like spaghetti sauce or taco filling, I would rather pay slightly more for a meat tray that clearly states the lean-to-fat ratio at the fresh counter. Knowing exactly what I am buying is far better than hoarding a cheap meat log only to stand there and watch half of it melt into grease in the pan. 10. Lay's party-size potato chips. Those massive bags of potato chips labeled party size, lined up on the shelves, look like a steal for the whole family. Huge, full, and feeling light as a feather when you hold them. But that feather-light feel is exactly the sign. This is a classic textbook example of packaging inflation, where the nitrogen gas pumped in to prevent crushing accounts for nearly half the bag's volume. You think you are bringing home a full bag, but in reality, you are bringing home a whole lot of air. To make matters worse, the actual weight inside has been quietly cut down year after year. The exact phenomenon that industry insiders call shrinkflation. The bag stays exactly as big as before. The price might even tick up, but the grams of chips inside have decreased, which hardly anyone notices because our eyes look at the bag, not at the net weight figure. Then there is the issue of not using it in time. The moment you tear open the seal, humid air rushes in and the chips lose their crunch very quickly. If you have a large household and eat it all in one sitting, that's fine. But smaller households usually leave it unfinished, and a few days later, biting into a chip reveals it has gone completely stale, forcing you to throw out a third of the bag. Thus, the massive bargain turns into a wasted expense instead. If your household isn't large, buying a moderate-sized bag that stays crunchy as you eat it turns out to be both less wasteful and better tasting. The final two items look tiny and harmless. Yet they are the exact spots where you are being hit the hardest in your wallet on a per-ounce basis. 11. Great Value Pure Vanilla Extract. A dash of pure vanilla extract elevates the aroma of an entire batch of baked goods. So any household that bakes frequently keeps a bottle on hand. However, even with their private label, Great Value still keeps this item at a fairly high price point. And many people pay for it without realizing just how much extra they are paying because everyone only glances at the total price slapped on the bottle rather than breaking it down to compare. And breaking it down is exactly where the issue shows up. When you divide the price by the number of ounces in the bottle, you will see that vanilla at Walmart runs you nearly $4 per ounce. Meanwhile, if you have a membership card and walk into Costco, a bottle of pure vanilla extract under the Kirkland signature label only costs around $1.06 per ounce. Both are pure vanilla, and both are the same quality, yet the price gap is nearly a fourfold increase. Let me be blunt. The Great Value product itself isn't bad. Pure vanilla extract is still pure vanilla extract, and it bakes up with the proper fragrance. The only issue is that you are paying nearly 4 times as much for the exact same thing simply because you are shopping in the wrong place. Furthermore, pure vanilla extract has a very long shelf life. Kept tightly sealed in a cool place, it practically never spoils, and the longer it sits, the more mellow the flavor becomes. So, buying a large bottle but using it over a whole year is a very common thing. If you happen to be heading to Costco or can ask a relative with a membership card to buy one for you, you will save a significant amount of cash instead of steadily paying a premium at Walmart every time you run out. 12. Great Value Taco Seasoning Mix. These small packets of taco seasoning are often quickly tossed into the cart whenever people want to switch up dinner with a Mexican-style taco night. Convenient and cheap. It looks like something you don't even have to think twice about, but when you flip to the ingredient panel, it's a bit of a letdown. Standing at the top of the list are usually bulking and thickening agents like corn starch, followed by salt, then a bit of sugar syrup, while the ingredients that are supposed to be the soul of the seasoning packet, like chili powder, cumin, or garlic, are buried way at the bottom in meager percentages. In other words, most of what you are buying is starch and salt, while the actual flavor is minimal. And by weight, these small packets are surprisingly expensive, much more expensive than blending it yourself. This also happens to be the single easiest item to replace out of the entire list. You can buy individual jars of original spices, chili powder, cumin, garlic powder, and a bit of onion powder, and mix up a large jar to use over time. It is both cheaper per meal and allows you to adjust the amount of salt to your own liking. And the aroma is significantly punchier than the prepackaged blend. For older folks who have to watch their sodium intake, mixing it yourself also helps you control the salt. A choice that the pre-made packet does not give you the right to decide. If you only hold on to one takeaway today, let it be the habit of flipping to the back to read the label before putting anything into your cart. The first 3 ingredients tell you what you are truly buying, and the name printed in large fonts on the front is usually just advertising. By taking those extra 10 seconds, you will avoid a fair amount of wasted cash and keep your family's meals significantly healthier.